Āpiti Hono, Tātai Hono, kia ora koutou, Pure here, having a little yarn to our extended whānau here in Kirikiriroa at the Ngāpuhi Road Show. And I think this fellow who just came in here was sort of levered into our caravan. Tēnā koe te whanaunga.
Tēnā koe keo.
Yeah, haka marama ko wai koe.
Ko Bill Joyce hei.
Yeah.
No te hokianga ne.
Yeah.
No Ōrira me Utakura hoki.
Beautiful. Engari, but you've been staying down here in Kirikiriroa for how long?
1975.
Yeah.
I spent 30 years of my life here in the police, and I spent another 20 with corrections.
Well, tēnā koe. He mahi rangatira. Well, it is. It so is. I mean, I've had a lot of whānau who have worked in the police, and it's certainly a tough gig today. Yeah. So what motivated you to come along?
To this hui today?
Yeah.
The fact of Ngāpuhi.
Yeah,
the fact of Ngāpuhi. And right from the beginning, I asked my niece, well, Eddie, I don't see Kirikiriroa on the program. You feel it's coming here? So when she said, yeah, this was the date, so I made sure.
Yeah.
Aye.
How did you find it?
Like the hui itself? Yeah, I found it quite interesting because I sat down and had a talk to Hono Sadler and Dave Evans, who I know. I asked Hono, I said, Hono, if Ngāpuhi is the largest iwi in the country, what percentage of Ngāpuhi still reside within the Ngāpuhi rohe?
Great question.
Yeah, and he said to me, well, only 20%. I said, well, that means 80% of us don't live up north anymore.
Yeah.
So I said, so what's the strategy then in being able to reach the 80%? Because I've heard this morning that the majority of us are less than 27 years of age.
That's correct.
So that's a huge challenge to do that.
Yeah. Mind
you, we're not that different from any other rohe, to be quite honest.
Sure.
Except maybe Tainui and Ngaitahu perhaps, because I regard them as the leaders in terms of getting their act together and moving forward.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, totally. And they learn from each other too.
Aye.
The points you make are incredibly valid. That's why we need to be able to, and that's part of this hui, is how do we communicate? How do we link together, even though it may not be geographically, with modern technology, eh?
Well, the modern technology is the way. The other night, I got on the AI.
Whoa, look at you!
Yeah, and I asked a question. Tell me, with Ngāpuhi rangatira ko Hongi Hika, what was his influence in establishing the Māori Pākehā relationships in his time, and what has endured from his efforts since then through to today? Anyway, so I thought, well, I'll just ask. Well, I was really blown away by the response. And
I'm blown away by the question, for starters, but tell me about the response.
Yeah, because when I read the response, it's, he said that, well, Hongi Hika was a man of a significant mana, and he formed very close relationships with the early missionaries. But here's an interesting bit. He went to England.
Yep,
he went to England, and when he went to England, he met with the royalty, so on and so forth. And when he came back, he said, you know what? Before I went, I thought the missionaries were people of a real mana, rangatiratanga. But when I went to England, I found that there's a king and a queen over there. And the missionaries over here, they're not a rangatira. What they are, he says, I think he described them as tutuā, I think was the word he said, saying that they were communists. They were communists. They weren't a rangatira as far as he was concerned, like him,
right? Because
he had mana, and of course what he said with his mana, he wasn't slow. He went to England. He saw how the English lived. He noted their buildings, their ships, their technologies, and of course the musket.
Yeah.
And he came back absolutely blown away by what he had seen. But he then realised that there were now technologies available that could be used to his advantage.
Kia ora.
So he wasn't slow.
Yeah.
And he knew exactly what he wanted to do when he came back. But even so, even saying that, Hongi Hika did not break his relationships with the missionaries. He still wanted to continue those relationships because he saw the advantage in the preservation of those relationships.
Yeah.
We were moving forward.
Wow. AI. It's you either love it or hate it.
Well, I mean, but AI is neither good nor bad. It's the use that people put it to. That's all I say.
Well, AI came up because we were originally talking about communicating with that under 30 cohort, which is a huge part of Ngāpuhi, ne?
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Because there's a part of me that's a little bit excited about where a lot of our 25 to 40-year-olds are at the moment. There's some really good, intelligent, passionate movers and shakers in that cohort. How are you feeling about that group, or how are you feeling about the future in general?
Well, with my work experience, the stats still don't look bright for Māori. With all of the time that we have now been westernised, we only form 15% of that population, and yet we still hit the 50-51% for our prison population, which tells us that there are huge gaps there across the wider social scale in terms of health, in terms of education, economics, so on, so forth. So there's a huge challenge there, and it's been there for a long, long time now. And in relation to how are we going to move forward, then my own personal opinion is it's got to be with within the whānau, with raising the family in a proper manner. But you've got to be careful about saying that, because we're not all born the same. We're not all born with a spoon in the mouth, and we're not all born in poverty. But most of us, I think, can now read and write, yet, believe it or not, there are still a significant number of Māori who still struggle with their literacy skills. And of course, what we learn from history, because history provides a window on the march of civilization, or even the march of the progress of various, how can you say it, the progress of various civilizations. And what history tells us, if you don't keep up, you get left behind.
Kia ora.
And it's that getting left behind that is the concern for me. And yet what I'll say, we are as bright as anyone else. We are as good as anyone else when it comes to education. We now have amongst us judges in the High Court, district court judges, so on and so forth, within the medical professions. But there's still something lacking there in our leadership, in our kaumātuatanga. A lot of places now have dried up in relation to kaumātua, especially in the rural areas.
Totally.
And to me, that's concerning too.
Leadership. And it's funny you should say that. We need to wrap this up, but when you talk about these statistics, these negative statistics, you can see this globally with other Indigenous peoples.
You can.
And there is a common thread of people who have, and it's not an excuse, who have lost their language, who lost their connection, or the ability to create wealth because of losing land and stuff. We need to recognise that as well and still move forward. So you're right. It's a tough gig. Yeah, tough gig. It is. But last question, and it's an important one that you need to think about. How do you think the Warriors will go next year?
Well, let's look at the history again, Joe.